We're here in the Livingston Shire Council Disaster Hub with the Mayor, Councillor Andy Ireland. Andy, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you, Phil.
A couple of things that are happening. We're in Get Ready Queensland Week, we're in Mental Health Month, and we're in Seniors Month, but we're not talking about that because I qualify. So let's start talking about disasters. We're a little bit prone to them in this part of the world. We had a cyclone in 2015, we had the fires in 2019. We're all affected by the pandemic for the subsequent couple of years, and we've got a big storm season, I guess, predicted.
That's right.
So just tell us a bit about Council's plans for the storm season and the sort of services that you can provide to business.
Sure. Well, as you've said, Phil, we're predicting a particularly wet summer, and the prediction from the Bureau is a minimum of 4 cyclones. So we are well and truly in the preparedness stage within the local disaster management group framework.
Yep.
So we're meeting on a regular basis now as those updates come through, so that we're obviously fully appraised of the situation as it develops. Now, in terms of what happens during a particular event, the local disaster management group stands up. And then all of the various agencies, so we've got quite a number of them, ranging from the majors, the Queensland Police Service, Queensland Fire and Emergency Services, which includes the SES, ambulance, Coast Guard, radio, all of those different agencies. They all sort of come in and group together then, and this particular centre here then becomes activated. Council staff come on board, and basically tasks are allocated to individual staff members who basically fill certain roles. And so then once this centre is up and operating, we provide advice to the community as to what's happening. Now, in terms of the business community, which you're particularly interested in, our advice to the business community is, first of all, develop yourself a business continuity plan. Now, there's a number of ways you can do that, and I suppose if some of those involve money that you're not prepared to spend, then we can help you here within the centre. Our disaster staff will provide you with some advice as to how you can go about drafting one of those. I think they're very critical because they cover things like, what do you do? How do you prepare for it? What do you do with your stock levels? How's your insurance cover? What are your staff rostering situation going to be like? Are you going to send people home at particular points in time? All those sorts of things will be covered by your business continuity plan. We can help you with that, but there's also resources online for you to do that.
Oh, terrific.
And then one of the things that we also encourage people to do, Phil, is keep us updated for our councillor portal, our disaster management portal. Now, that's online and anybody can access that. And so, for example, in the last bushfire season we had, the 2019 bushfires and the cyclone prior to that, businesses were updating us on a regular basis as to whether they were open, whether they had ice, whether they had food stocks, all of those sorts of things. So that particular portal is fantastic for updating our community from our business people. It also provides an opportunity for members of the community, and we're not suggesting people do this during disasters, but certainly afterwards, if they want to go around and take photos of particular locations, a road might be out, a bridge might be out, take a photo, they can upload that to our portal so that our disaster people can then take appropriate steps to remedy it.
So all good practical stuff, but that thing about the business continuity plan, that really is the starting point.
That's right.
And, the pandemic affected us differently, but if you go back to the, the bushfires and the cyclone, it's been a while and people do tend to forget a little bit. So that's the opportunity. What we're trying to do here, obviously, is remind people of that stuff that they might have just pushed to the back of their minds. They need to bring it forward. DDMG, Actually, no, DDMG was what I used to be on, so the LDMG, the local disaster management, that's the one. So it's not actually stood up at the moment, but you're in that sort of preparedness phase.
Well, we're always in a preparedness stage and monitoring the situation, but our clear message is around preparedness, Phil. So, we can help individual businesses and members of the community to a point, but then they've got to help themselves.
Understood.
And certainly that business continuity plan is a key element within that.
Terrific. So I did mention earlier about it being Mental Health Month. This is also the sort of opportunity for people to reflect on that as it might affect you and your employees when a disaster strikes. Is to check on your employees if they're okay, and don't forget yourself.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah, no, because if you don't look after yourself ultimately,
Yep.
everything else falls
over.
That's
No,
right.
exactly
that's
right.
So
No, we don't
you've got to
want
look after yourself. You've got to look after your employees, but please also check on your neighbours, because particularly
Yes.
the elderly, and you mentioned
Yep.
before, it is Seniors Month.
Yes.
And unfortunately, some of our elder members of the community lock themselves away, and that's not necessarily healthy or safe.
No, good point. Okay, thanks very much, Andy. That's really appreciated.
My absolute pleasure.
No, terrific, mate. Earlier, we spoke to Dave Mazzaferri, who is now with the National Emergency Management Organisation. So we'll cut to that interview now. Thanks very much. Morning, everybody. I'm Phil Henry from Capricornia Chamber of Commerce, and we're here in Livingston Shire Council's Disaster Hub with Dave Mazzaferri. So he used to be known as Disaster Dave. Don't draw the wrong conclusions. But that's all good. No, but David is now with the National Emergency Management Agency, which is a new agency. Dave, tell us a bit about it, please, mate.
Yeah, good morning, Phil. So the National Emergency Management Agency is a relatively new agency. It commenced on the 1st September this year. Now, it's an amalgamation of the Emergency Management Australia Agency and also the National Recovery and Resilience Agency. And the purpose of this formation of this agency is an end-to-end disaster management, which is a fantastic initiative, but also to produce national leadership looking at disasters across the nation. And it's important that we do that. And the amount of money that's actually been spent on disaster management over the years is about $38 billion, and it's actually forecasted to increase quite significantly by 2030. So it's important to have that national strategic look, knowing that Queensland and of course local are still the state lead when it comes to disaster management.
Yeah, okay. Now, thanks, Dave. Probably fairly good timing that we're doing is here. We're here in the Management Disaster Hub. We've got really interesting stuff on the big screen behind us, and we've heard in the last week some pretty serious forecasts about the storm season for this year. Give us your take on that, please.
Yeah, Phil, so great point, and I'd recommend all the viewers to actually have a look at the Bureau of Meteorology website, and especially to understand the risk, but also to have a look at the latest information from the media team about the upcoming season. Now, we here in obviously Central Queensland focus on flooding when it comes to this season, of course cyclones. So 73% more likelihood of cyclones nationally, and that usually is about 11, and for us here in Eastern it's usually an average of 4, but we're actually likely, according to the Bureau of Meteorology, get 74% more, which of course then brings flooding. So what we would recommend to our viewers is that they actually, as I said, understand their risk, but importantly know what that means for them. Know where their businesses are situated, know where their staff are located, and very importantly what that means for them for transportation routes and also logistics.
Yeah, because it's been, what is it now, about 7 years since the last major disaster, natural disaster event here. We're all humans, Dave. We tend to forget stuff, stuff that isn't really front of mind or confronting us. We tend to shift away, and then it goes to the back of the head. So what are the basics that people need to go back to and start to think about right now?
Yeah, great point, Phil, and it's important. We have experienced multiple disasters since 2015 Tropical Cyclone Marsha, which was probably a little bit of awakening for us when it came to that type of event. We've had multiple bushfires, we've of course had pandemics, and we've had storms, and we had floods. So it's important that as a community, we all know what our hazards are, know what our exposures to that hazards are, and also what we can do to actually treat those hazards. And for the group here about the businesses, time to remind us, say, have we got a business continuity plan?
Yes.
What does that mean for the succession planning of our staff? Are they able to come in? Can we open it up? What's the power capability to do backup generator? Will there be loss of stock if we actually have power for? What's our telecommunications risks, etc.? So I'd recommend that our patrons watching would actually have a look at their business continuity plan, have a chat with staff, and very importantly, go to the local government disaster dashboard and also go to the Bureau of Meteorology and have a look at what the risks say about that.
Yeah, there were some interesting stories from we've had in floods in the past. People have had their network servers on the floor, and all of a sudden lost all their backup and everything. So I guess sort of one way of looking at it, it's sort of the physical stuff, but also the human stuff,
for sure.
As well as you're referring to people's staff. What are their situations? What are going to be their ability to be involved or not? And given that we're in Mental Health Month as well, how are they travelling? If it's something really serious, keeping a check on and making sure you're there for them, and also, as we always know, being there for yourself.
Yeah, exactly right, Phil. Compelling aspects of disasters. We've had multiple disasters here. You know, people do need to reach out for each other, talk. You know, mate, that's very important. And as business owners and also as manager of staff, that's our role to also support our staff. So have a look at what's happening in the community based on a natural disaster, but also the fear of a natural disaster is also very important. So what are we doing as an entity to make sure we look after our staff, because they're the ones that are going to support us to open our doors and also to provide that service for our customers.
Exactly right. Just flicking back to the physical stuff, we had some interesting situations last time with telecommunications. Are you aware of any sort of improvements in the telecommunications network, particularly with our two major providers, about what's likely to stay up and what's likely to go down?
I think it's important that the local disaster management group, through the district disaster management group, are assessing all those risks, and our telcos are actually providing that information. The benefit of having some strong community-led approach to disasters through Rockhampton, through Livingston in this case, through the local disaster management group, those players play a pivotal role in actually supporting the community. You know, NBN with the capability as well to provide that source. So very important that we always review our risk. We call it exposures, always make sure we're aware of our exposure, what the vulnerability are, and constantly work on improvement.
Terrific, Dave. So I guess, look, that's the basics. We'll get people to sort of review their situation, and you would hope they've already got a business continuity plan, in which case go back to it and see if it's still valid. If it isn't, do one now. So any final message?
The final message is understand your risk. So the Bureau of Meteorology has given that information. The local government, through their local disaster management group, have their disaster dashboards, keep up to date, and just be aware for warnings. So the Bureau of Meteorology warnings send out flood warnings, cyclone watches, etc. So just be aware, but not only be aware of it, do the what ifs. What does that actually mean for you? You know, what has this potential to impact me? Am I going to be able to open my doors up? Are my staff going to be impacted? Have those conversations with your staff as well.
Indeed, Dave. It's serious stuff, and business owners should take it seriously.
Correct. Yeah.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.